What is going on? It is Dr. Remy LeBeau, and I'm coming at you once again from the X Layer to provide you my deep and insightful thoughts into something that I have not ever addressed on this channel before, and that is anime. I'm not an anime person beyond the fact that when I was a kid, I watched this show called Robotech, which was 3 different anime put together into one big story. It's epic. It's like 85 episodes. It's one of my favorite things ever. And yeah, so that's from that. Like I watched everything related to that. Like they made, well, originally it was an anime in Japan. It was called Macross, and then they did like sequels to that. But like the way the 3 different animes were woven together was a very like unique American thing, and that's something that I've loved my whole life. So here is just one of the volumes of Robotech 2, The Sentinels, which was an unproduced sequel to the show that sort of tied everything together. It was actually going to be like, it was going to like merge all of the different animes, because all the characters, even though they mentioned different things in the different shows, they never actually interacted because it was 3 shows that were kind of stitched together. And then in the dub, they were kind of linked. But this sequel was supposed to do that and never did it. Anyway, check out Robotech. It's friggin' awesome. I believe it's on Crunchyroll right now, so you can check that out. Crunchyroll is like a big anime streaming service. All right. So I found out about this Attack on Titan thing. I've heard a lot about it. Not in terms of what it was actually about, just like I just kept hearing about it and hearing about it and hearing about it. Then like last week, Hulu popped up on my Disney Plus. So I started going through Hulu and they have a bunch of anime and they have Attack on Titan. And I was like, all right, well, let me check this out. Okay. So I started watching it. And then I have not stopped watching it until last night when I finished it. So the show originally aired from like 2010 to 2023, and it actually ended last month. I think that's why I was hearing a lot about it, because it had just actually ended. So it's based on a manga, which is like it's just basically a Japanese comic book that had been going on all the way like I don't think like the show started getting produced before the manga was complete. I believe the manga was complete in 2020, and it started maybe a little bit before the anime. So it must have taken off in Japan and then as a manga, and then they made it into an anime. But I believe the first season like debuted with like 25 episodes or something, like in 2013, and then they didn't have a second season until like 2017. That only had 12 episodes. But then the third season had like 25 or something. And then this final season had like 30 episodes. And the final season was broken up into 2 big chunks. And like there was like a big separation between the release of the 2. And I heard like a lot of stuff about like the animators in Japan being pushed to try to get this out. And believe me, the quality of this show is phenomenal in terms of the actual like animation. It's just like spectacular, especially when it comes to like the big action stuff that happens a lot in this show. And when it does, it's pretty spectacular, and the animation is wow, just mind-blowing. So there was a lot of stuff about the animators getting pushed and like and just a lot of them like just some of them being suicidal because like they just had to work so hard, and like there aren't any protections for the workers. So they would, like with all the actor strikes that were happening here, there was a lot of talk about they should be unionizing and etc. There's like all this stuff going on around this one thing. It's really amazing. It's a really amazing thing. It's really weird. I don't know if I can recommend it to everybody, because like you have to have enough time to watch it all. And like, so the first season, like it's very epic, but like it's akin to Lost, an American television show, where it was like, here's something going on, and like you don't know a lot about what's going on, but you're just kind of thrown into the situation. And then eventually it's like an onion, right? The layers are peeled off and you start to sort of see, oh, look at this bigger thing. Oh, okay, now look at this bigger thing. Okay. Oh, okay, now look at this. And like, and that's basically what this show was like. It was very Lost-esque, which honestly, it might have influenced the narrative structure of this show, because Lost went on from like 2000 to like 2008 or something, and this came out later, right? So that might have influenced this. This was a much more successful version of that sort of peeling of the onion storytelling than Lost was. Lost was a complete disaster. I was a huge fan until the final episode, and then I just gave up on it. I thought the final episode, the way they explained everything was terrible, and I thought that it just was a complete betrayal of the entire thing. The last episode of this was not a complete betrayal. It was like, the whole thing kind of, the promise of the show and all the questions that were established and everything that was going on, like it all came together, and it all was tied up really nicely. And so this was a very successful, very intricate story that was told in this series. And the way that it was told, I wonder, so like the person that came up with it, I want to shout out his name, because he does deserve it. His name is Hajime Isayama. So it's Hajime Isayama is the guy that came up with the story, was behind the manga, and then, you know, was behind this anime as well. So like he took part in it. Hajime Isayama is brilliant. Like, I mean, clearly, like, manga is like, it's a very like culturally important tradition in Japan. Like, this stuff is not for kids. Like, this stuff is presented for adults. And let me tell you, this story is not for children. Like, there are some silly elements to it, but it's like, I'd say it's like less than 5%. And the rest of it is like very mature and like very R-rated in terms of violence. And the way the story is told, like the ins and outs it's very complex. It's very much, and it's very much Japanimation storytelling. It's very much manga storytelling. It's like dark, but there's hope, and there's like friendship and silliness, but there's just like devastation, and it's earth shattering, and it's just like, and it's so big, but it's also super small, right? It's just about a few characters, but it's also about like this larger world, and like just tens and tens of characters, like hundreds ultimately. And it very successfully kind of does this thing. And in the first season, it tells like an interesting story, like that's sort of isolated, and there's elements about it that you don't quite understand. But really, those elements create like this dire circumstance. So there's these things called titans. So these people live in like these three walled off, like this kingdom that's made up of three segments that are walled off with these enormous walls. Because there's these huge, like kind of like mindless zombie, but they're not zombie, they're human. They're alive human type entities, people, creatures. They're not like, they have human faces and human forms. They don't have genitalia, but they have butts. They have asses, but no genitalia. And they're just naked, and they're just like running around rampant, like eating people. And they're super big, so they're like, I don't know, maybe like 20, 30 feet tall. Some of them are smaller, some of them are bigger. And they're like this big threat to this like civilization that exists within these walls. And like the story is very harrowing in terms of like these people trying to survive in the world where this exists. And it talks about like 100 years worth of this circumstance, and like how we got to the moment of today. And in the moment of today, like you meet your characters and you sort of go on an adventure of them dealing with this world. You know, there's different factions of military that are set up to defend against this world. This world is set up in it feels almost like medieval times, but it's not. It's more of like turn of the 20th century ish, maybe a little bit later. But like, so the technology isn't advanced, but they have developed like this system that allows them to propel themselves with like these grappling hooks and like gas that kind of propels them, that allows them to kind of just basically be flying around as long as there's structures for them to kind of anchor themselves to and swing from, to fight these entities. And there's like ways to take them down, these titans. And so a lot of really harrowing stuff happens like in this first season. It's a lot is devastating. There's hope, but it's just like, it's crazy as far as like the magnitude of what is going on and the magnitude of the potential destruction, which we see play out, and like sort of the implications of that throughout the lives of these characters that are kind of growing up in this world. So we have three main characters. Our main character is Aaron Yeager, this kid, and his two best friends. I believe it's Mikasa Ackerman, and then there's also Armin Arlert. So it's like these three characters, but like there's all these other characters because they have grown up together as friends, but then they become part of this kind of military to try to defend the world. And then Aaron is sort of driving things, but then Mikasa and Armin are having their own journey, but it does revolve around Aaron. But like they wind up having a lot of friends in this military corps, the Rangers, I think they're called, and so like the world keeps expanding, the stories keep expanding, and there's a lot of things that are unknown and eventually start to get revealed. At the end of the first part, you get a big reveal, and then that sort of carries us into the second part that leads to more reveals. And then that leads us into the third part that leads to even more reveals, and like a really big reveal that then leads us to like the last part, the fourth season, which is just like enormous and just big, and like the things that happen in this world as a result of everything that came before. I mean, everything is ultimately explained, like who these titans are, where they came from. It all sort of is explained, and it's really weird because like all the elements are like super foreign as far as like storytelling goes. Like a lot of it is very original. You haven't really encountered a lot of these things before, so you wonder. It's like, are they just gonna shit the bed here? Are they just gonna like introduce a bunch of weird elements and then explain them in really dumb ways? And they don't. They explain them in really interesting ways, and like and ultimately like they focus on the characters and their journey. At the same time, that leads us to the revelations and the understanding of what's been going on in this world. And it gets really complicated and really convoluted, but like if you hang in there, it all just comes together really nicely and in a really satisfying way. And I'm really happy I took the time to really enjoy this thing. It's definitely a feat of human artistry, and definitely Japanese artistry for sure. It's just I'm in awe of the whole thing. Like it didn't change my life or anything. I'm glad that I only had it in my life for a short amount of time, that it wasn't in there for the 10 years that it aired or whatever. Like I'm glad that I got to enjoy it within probably like a week. I've had a lot of downtime because we're in the holidays here in the US, and things have died down in terms of the work that I do. It revolves around education and also trying to get into the film industry. But a lot of stuff is dying down right now because it's the holidays. So I had a lot of time in my hands, and this happened to be something that was able to fill my time. And I just kept going on the journey, and it was a journey worth going on. And I have to say, like, as a comparison to Lost, like, it was like much more satisfying and sort of like almost redeemed the experience of Lost in my mind, because like it had a very similar structure, and then ultimately like it actually like paid off like in a good way that made sense, and like and like everything kind of worked the way it was supposed to, and like a lot of the way it went was like surprising, but also not. But who cares? Because it was like amazing. At least the final season, the things that happened, and like the level of tragedy and devastation that kind of resulted from everything was enormous. Just a really interesting and good time is this whole thing. If you have some time to binge it in like a short amount of time, I would recommend that. But if you don't, I would be patient with it. Like there might be times where you might want to fall off, because like what happens is like there's a lot of setup, and then once there's like moments of takeoff, there actually in the first season, like there's a takeoff right away, and then there's a takeoff I think towards the end of the season, and the takeoffs span like a lot of episodes. So it's not like it's like, oh, you're just waiting for 2 episodes. Like, no, it's like 8 episodes of like the climax of the story being told within a particular season. And the last season has like big chunks of that. The second season is all of that mainly, and then the third season has a lot of that as well. The second half of the third season is like, whoa, enormous. Like, it's totally worth checking out. I would totally check it out if you haven't checked it out. Anyway, just wanted to get some thoughts down. I don't want to give anything away. I don't want to do a spoiler review on it, because like the information is out there, and I don't want, because there's some people that may watch this and may have never seen it, and I don't want to give anything away, because part of the enjoyment is just kind of going on this journey and letting it tell its story, and then just kind of, just kind of being like in this weird world with these weird revelations happening, and just going on that journey is very satisfying, and I wouldn't want to take that away from anybody. Anyway, those are my thoughts on Attack on Titan. Really fantastic experience. I may go back to this one day and watch it again, because I think it's totally worth it. I would do it. I would do it totally, without a doubt. Anyway, thanks for checking out my video. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe, click like, comment, or click dislike if you didn't like my video, whatever. And I hope everybody's doing as well as they possibly can. And as always, I want to remind you that if you haven't already, you better put an X in the box, because ain't nobody checking me. Ain't nobody checking me, folks. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.